So we're going to discuss in this video the 4 different types of tissue, and we're going to do each of them as their own different types of tissue and tissue type. The 4 main types are basically going to be classified with the type of cell they are, the function of the cell they are, and one of the things I want you to sort of keep an eye on is what the cell looks like and what the function is. Remember how structure equals function? You're going to see this pop up again and again in biology, and you'll definitely see this in the tissue types. Characteristics or matrix that surrounds the cell is going to be something that dictates what it does and how it's working, and the amount of space it occupies. Some are going to be really tiny, and some, like the nervous cell, there's one nerve ending that goes from your toe all the way up to your spine. So size is definitely going to be something that we'll discuss too. The 4 main types of tissue that we're going to discuss is the nervous tissue, and I'll make a separate video for that, muscle tissue, epithelial tissue, and connective tissue. This video alone is just going to focus in on the epithelial tissue. What epithelial means is it forms boundaries between different environments and protects us from things. Like it can protect, with our skin, it protects us from our outside area, temperatures, pressure, pH. Even inside our bodies, we have a thin epithelial layer before you hit, like, let's say, your kidneys or your lungs, and it prevents liquids from coming in and some bacteria and things like that. Epithelial tissues will also secrete stuff. There's some that are going to secrete mucus. There's some that are going to secrete chemicals to help us kill things for our immune system. There are some that are designed for absorbing. You can probably imagine they're going to be in your small intestines. Filtering, those are going to be the kind that we're going to probably see in our kidneys. And we'll talk more about them specifically in Bio 202. And then examples would be the lining of the digestive tract or hollow, so we cover the outside and the inside with this epithelial tissue, skin surface. And then finally, our last video will be on connective tissue. So where's the epithelial tissue located? Basically, it's in the lining organs that are exposed to the external environment. And you could think of the external environment being our outside of our body, but of course, when you're going from one tissue type to another, there's going to be those environments as well. So you can imagine the digestive tract is very different from our reproductive tract. So they're going to have their own epithelial linings that's going to protect them. The urinary tract has its own thing, so it's going to have a lining protecting it, and then the respiratory tract has a lining as well because there's a liquid that's on the outside of the lungs, and it's to help reduce friction, but if that liquid got inside of our lungs, we would actually drown. So if we go through the definitions of what epithelial tissue functions are, we can go ahead and figure out that it protects. It protects us from invasions and injury from certain things. So like the location could be our skin, nasal passages, our vagina, our penis has both of these linings to prevent exterior things from coming in, like bacteria and things like that. Our digestive system. We have, it helps us secrete. There are some specialized ones that secrete mucus, and there's some specialized ones that secrete sweat, and then there's some specialized ones in our mouth that secrete enzymes to help us break down food as we're eating. The location, these are all going to be in different glands that we'll talk about soon. Excretion, they're going to help us excrete waste products like carbon dioxide. There's some that are going to be excreting bile from like our gallbladder, and the locations would be our lung, our digestive tract. Absorption, these are going to be things that are going to allow things to come in, so like nutrients, those are definitely going to be in our small intestines. Filtration, this is going to be where water, solutes, and waste products can kind of go into a environment to get filtered and separated out. Definitely where it comes to mind is the kidneys. Blood vessels do the same thing. They're going to separate things out by diffusion, and same as the kidneys. And then sensation, which is just nerve endings located on the skin and the stomach, and we're going to talk about those later when we get to nerves at the later part of this unit. So epithelial tissue, the physical description is one or more layers that closely adhere to each other. They're avascular. So vascular means that they're attached to blood vessels. Avascular means that there's no blood vessels that come and touch these cells. So they either have to get nutrients from neighboring cells or they're dead, one or the other. So there's two types of tissues when you look at one of these guys. There's going to be the basal surface. The basal surface sits on the basement membrane and is made up of a thin sort of like collagen that attaches to these sites. It helps anchor these tissue and it provides them with some support. And then the atypical surface, which is the outer layer, faces outside of the organ, whatever it is, and that's the area that's going to do the job. So this area will get the nutrients, and this area will go ahead and either secrete things or do whatever it needs to do. What you're seeing a picture of here is basically a small part of the small intestines. So you can see that one part is going to be the basal membrane that's going to be attached to that thin layer of collagen. Then all the cells will be attached to them. And then the inside part, this little area over here, that's going to be called the atypical surface. And that is going to be the area that's going to do the functioning, be absorbing or creating a fluid or whatever it needs to do. Shape, there's a couple of different types of shape. There's squamish, which sounds like squashed. You'll see what they look like in a minute. Cuboidal look kind of like dice, square. And then columnar look like little columns. So these names are pretty easy. Squamish is the only one that you might have to remember, but the other two sort of look the way that they sound. And then we also call them by if they are simple, which means one layer, or stratified means more than one layer. So like your skin is stratified. It's layer upon layer upon layer of these epithelial tissues just sort of sitting on the outside. For simple, it could be something like in your kidney, one layer. And basically the name contains the shape of the layer. So stratified columnar epithelium is going to say that it's stratified, which means it's more than one layer. It's columnar, meaning that they're going to be like column shapes, and you'll see a couple pictures in a minute, and they're epithelial cells. Squamish, remember we said they kind of look squashed. They look really flat and disc-shaped. They allow rapid diffusion of substances to go one direction to the other. So this could be where we'll see in different parts where we need to move liquids from one area to the other, like kidneys and things like that. Cuboidal is going to be a square-shaped. They're great for absorption and secretion. And usually these guys are going to go ahead and produce mucus. So anywhere you think about where mucus is going to be formed, you can assume that cuboidal cells are going to be there. So inside of your nose, down your trachea, all these areas where mucus is needed. You probably don't think that we need mucus in our small intestines, but we do. It helps us move things around. So there's a little bit there as well. Columnar, these are going to be really tall, so they look like little columns. You'll see that there's the top area where they're going to go ahead and secrete things. Remember, the atypical surface is going to be the top layer, and the bottom layer is going to be the basal surface. So here you can see the basal surface where they're accepted to the collagen. They're attached to that. And the top is going to be the atypical surface. This is the area that's going to do the things. So this is going to secrete, absorb. These guys could produce mucus. Sometimes they have these little hairs on them, and those are called cilia, ciliated, and they'll allow things to move from one direction to another. More about the layers. Simple means one layer, allows for easy diffusion from one side to the other. Stratified is more than one layer, and this could be for protection. So you could see that these are kind of like bricks where you have multiple layers, and it's going to take a while to get to another part of your body. And then our next video, we'll go ahead and do connect.